Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Taylor Stone. I'm joining you live from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission in warm St. Lucia. Buenos dias, buenas noches, bonjour, bonsoir, bonne nuit. Welcome to the Employee Engagement free webinar under the rubric, The Nexus Between Business Success and the Next Normal. The current webinar is really a teaser, a lead up to the Sustainable Development Movement that is scheduled to take place in September 23 and 24, 2020. COVID has thrown us into a frenzy. It took us by surprise. We were unprepared. We weren't ready. But out of all of this came some brilliant opportunities. The unit of analysis and what is happening on the ground is the fact that people, most of all, were displaced. Leaders were displaced, employees were displaced. And we really want to focus and zoom in on SDG 8 rather, that looks at decent work and economic growth. And our particular focus this morning is looking at decent work as it relates to employee engagement. The Sustainable Development Movement is really a space that will bring together global leaders, global entrepreneurs, the private sector, government, the rest of the public sector cadre, as well as academia, the man on the street, the woman on the street, to have conversation as it relates to growth and development and advancement of the SDGs. But not just that, but to do it in a very disruptive, innovative way. Because we're in a season where it cannot continue to be business as usual. We're in an epoch where it has to be business unusual. And that is what the SDM 2020 is about. I'm going to turn over to our moderator for today. Her name is Marsha Lewis. She has over 22 years of experience in strategic human resources. She's also the CEO and Managing Director for LCI Consultant Management, based in Barbados. Marsha is a leadership development coach as well, and she's absolutely passionate about the area of human capital development. Marsha, over to you.
Thank you, Lisa, and welcome to all of you. I see already we have almost 400 people, and we're expected to have 1,000 of you live, so it's going to be quite a fun time today. Let me first start off by saying a big thank you to our title sponsors for the entire SDM movement, our folks at Republic Bank. We're the one for you, Republic Bank, happy to have them. This specific webinar is being brought to you by the OECS Commission, of course, DHL, the Engage for Results Group, Jason Lauritsen, Caribbean Institute of Learning and Coaching, Intuit, and of course, last but not least, Alvin Day and the Global Empowerment Institute. And I'm happy to say that the CEOs and leaders of these respective companies are the individuals who are going to be here today, joining you and sharing with you their vast experience in regards to what is this new normal. That being said, let's dive into some key ground rules to ensure that we have a very productive session, but also we make the most of our time. So first and foremost, remember that you can access the entire webinar and the recording via the OECS-SDM.com link. And I'm going to ask our colleagues at OECS to just share that in the chat so you have easy access. So for those of you who may have joined a bit late or have to run away, know that you could log on there and get that information. That site is also the site that you could register on to join the movement. And later on in the presentation, you'd see that we have a flash sale going on. So now is your time. You have 24 hours. Lisa's going to come back and join us a bit later to give you a bit more detail on that. Also, an important part of this entire session would be, of course, us hearing from you. Again, to make the most of our time together, we're going to manage the questions and answers through the Zoom dashboard. So I'm going to invite you to please put your questions as the speakers present in the Q&A section. Our team at the OECS will answer those questions that they can right away as we are going through the process. And for those that need the input from the speakers, At the end of all 4 questions, I will be hosting the 15-minute session of Q&As. But get those questions in early so that we can pool them together and ensure that your questions are answered. So with that being said, I'm going to ask you to please join me in taking a quick poll. And this poll is important as we're ready for September and ensuring that you are joining the movement. So I'm just going to pop up a quick poll at this time. And I'm going to ask you to just do this quick poll for us, and then we'll get straight into this morning's proceedings. So is everybody seeing the poll? My OECS folks, are you seeing the poll? Fellow presenters, are you seeing the poll?
It's up now.
Excellent. We're just going to leave that up there for about 60 seconds so that you have an opportunity to give us your feedback. Already I'm seeing the engagement. Excellent. So as the poll is being taken, remember, please ask your questions, put it in that Q&A section, and we will ensure that as best as possible, we answer them. Note that because this is just a circa hour-long session, that any questions that are not answered in this forum, we will be posting the responses as best as we can, once again, on our SDM website. So please ensure that you log on to that so you get that feedback. Just a few more minutes until the poll is taken. All right. Thank you so much for your feedback. We may come back to this a bit later, but again, thank you. We have a good sense of what your thoughts are around your attendance in September. Thank you so much. Okay. So before we go any further, let's hear a little bit more about our key speakers. But let's set a bit context around what is this new normal. And I know for a lot of us, when we talk about employee engagement, and as an HR practitioner myself, we think about that touch and feel, that intimacy of engagement with our colleagues and with our respective managers. But how does that look in this new normal when so much, as the screen is showing, of our work is not this face-to-face interaction, but our new normal is logging on and ensuring that we can see folks via a screen? How do you engage an employee in that regard? What is this nexus that we're dealing with? And to help us understand that, allow me to share with you a little bit more about your very esteemed group of panel members today. And I want to start off first with Alvin Day. So Alvin, I'm sure you may be seeing Alvin on your screen. If Alvin, you can wave to the folks. Alvin Day is an executive leadership coach and empowerment and a keynote speaker who has trained leaders, I would say, in every continent conceivable. Alvin continues to work with Fortune 500 companies, specifically in this field of leadership coaching and empowerment. Up next, we have Gail Jean-Baptiste, and Gail is the head of human resources at the OECS Commission. And having worked closely with Gail, I can definitely vouch she is definitely one of the most impactful transformational leaders. She really has an understanding of that linkage between business profits and, of course, how we generate and allow our human capital to be linked to that. Gail brings a wealth of experience, not only from a Caribbean perspective, but prior to her being the head of the OECS, she worked in the capacity of head of HR for Yahoo, with responsibilities for Africa and the Middle East. Welcome, Gail. Ian Blanchard. Ian Blanchard, a former C-level executive with lots of experience in telecommunications, technology, the list goes on, is currently a John Maxwell coach, trainer, and speaker. His current role actually is CEO of the Caribbean Institute of Leadership and Coaching. Ian has considerable experience working with not just international companies and multinationals, but he has a real passion for working with regional entities, in particular SMEs. And then we turn over to Ken. And Ken, big thank you, Ken Wright. Ken Wright is actually joining us in Australia, where I think it's fast approaching 11 p.m. So Ken, happy to see you looking fresh and ready to go. Ken is the CEO of Engage for Results, a global leader and author of the award-winning book, The People Pill. He's accredited with raising employee engagement to over 90% and growing the profitability of the Westpac Financial Services by 425% over a 5-year period. Thanks again, Ken, for being here.
Thanks.
Next, we have Chris Gillette. And Chris is the Senior Director of Global CIS Program and Mastermind of Truly Global Mindset, who leads the world's most international employee grouping, international company, through employee engagement and transformation. Chris's efforts has resulted in an increase in revenue just by his work through employee engagement and leadership in over 220 of DHL's country locations. And that's where Chris holds the role of Senior Director with the most international company, DHL. Great having you here, Chris. I want to move next to Jason Lauritsen. And Jason is the leadership coach and engagement expert. And his mantra is to make work human. And I quite like that. Let's make work human. And Jason has the privilege of reviewing data for over 80,000 companies worldwide as a former director of Quantum, Great Places to Work. He understands with intimacy what makes great organizations great. And that is definitely the people factors we'll hear today. And then last, by no means least, we have Jennifer Mullen. And Jennifer is Director of Talent Acquisition, the international group at Intuit. Jennifer is an innovative catalyst who oversees and implements cutting-edge resource-based people policies and programs to attract the best talent at Intuit. And folks, that's your very esteemed panel who would be sharing with us not only their expertise, but their hands-on experience in regards to employee engagement and how do we approach employee engagement in this, the new normal. So I hope you're excited as I am, because we're going to kick things off with our first focus question. And our first focus question looks specifically at what are the new models and structures that are being introduced to organizations right now to enable increased economic stability and laser-sharp delivery and agility. Part B of that question is, what are the shifts that are taking place in the global talent acquisition space that we need to be aware of? And leading off this conversation would be Jason and Jennifer. And without further ado, Jason, I invite you to share with us your insights on this very important question. Jason?
Thanks, Marcia. I'm going to take the first half of this question. So before I do that, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I bring you greetings from the dead center of the continental United States. Sun is shining, so it's a great day here. I'm going to tackle this first one, and it's a giant question, and I have a very short amount of time to try to answer it. And so here's what I'll share with you based on what I've been observing and what I've been seeing from organizations that I think are navigating through this time with success and who I think will emerge on the other side of this position to thrive. It boils down to two things. I think the organizations have been investing in well-being in a way that they have not in the past, or maybe they've been doing some investment there, but are really doubling down. Things like really making sure they're paying attention to physical and mental health and well-being. Obviously, as we have people working in more isolation or more distributed fashions, we can't gather in the way that we did before. This is a pretty significant issue. We all are aware of that. The organizations that I think are getting through this are being really intentional. They're putting programs in, they're coaching their managers and leaders on how to help and support their employees through this. This also means that they're thinking about and looking at financial wellness and financial security as well, being very thoughtful about what's happening in their employees' lives and financials. The other thing I think in well-being is safety. Obviously, safety has become a big issue. what the short version I would say is that the way they're approaching well-being is by really operationalizing Maslow's hierarchy and realizing that we really moved down a notch on the hierarchy. We need to feel safe. We need to feel like our basic needs are cared for. So they're really investing in well-being like they haven't before. The second thing they're doing is really thinking about relationships and maintaining and fostering relationships with their employees, both those that they're keeping on and those that if they have to furlough or part ways, the way they're treating them is really in service of a long-term relationship, because they know that reputations are built over years and they can be destroyed in seconds or minutes. And so really investing in that relationship, thinking about that, putting that forefront and making sure that the people that they bring with them through the experience, through this time, feel really good about how they were cared for, and the people they had to part with felt like it was done with dignity and respect and honor. So those are the two things that I would say I've been seeing and I would encourage you to think about and invest in. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jennifer to talk about the talent acquisition side of this question.
Hi, everyone. Jennifer here. So Jennifer Mullen, I work for Intuit. So you can see this up here on the slide now. Just to explain a little bit more, because I think we're one of the best kept secrets. People often say Intuit who. So we're a 9,000 person company, and you can see here we have three main products. We ultimately are a fintech business. So we try and make people's financial lives better. And you'll see from behind me, our mission is powering prosperity around the world. So this has been a really challenging time for us because our customers are primarily small businesses, and obviously small businesses are having a really tough time at the moment, keeping their businesses afloat. So it's been very important for us to ensure that our employees are set up really well in this new virtual environment to still continue to support our customers. So I think, you know, the talent acquisition team was probably one of the first teams that had to very quickly pivot as the world became virtual, because we were still hiring, we still had to make key hiring decisions, but we now had to do it virtually. Now, being an international global business with offices all over the world, we'd always had elements of people on video interviews, but it was quite unusual to have a situation where a candidate wasn't in the office and wasn't getting the opportunity to meet anyone at Intuit before we're suddenly asking them to make one of life's massive decisions of moving job. So we moved extremely quickly, and I mean many 1 a.m. days, right, to make this happen. But we moved really quickly to educate leaders on how to make hiring decisions virtually. So trying to dispel all those fears that you would have, right, about making a hiring decision when you haven't met someone. So there was lots of online training live training that we did with our leaders and hiring teams. We also spent some time on, you know, what are all the ways that virtual interviewing might cause bias? And you know, we'd often heard in the past leaders say to us, oh, you know, if I can't see someone, like, how can I decide if they're a culture fit? So there was a lot of education that we did around, you know, we need to make sure someone aligns to our values. Talking about culture fit is almost like saying we're a cult that they need to fit into, which is not the case. You know, we embrace diversity. We want a variety of different ways of thinking on the team. So really, virtual interviewing presents us with an opportunity to decrease bias, right? Because you have to make a decision based on the content of the person's answers and their experience, rather than all those feelings, you know, that gut feel that people talk about. So we did a lot of training around that. And we also did a lot of coaching with the candidates in the lead up to their interview. So preparing them for, you're not going to meet anyone, you're not going to see the office, but you're still going to make a hiring decision. Like, how do you feel about that? What are your concerns? So virtual interviewing is now working really well at Intuit. It's almost like we never did it any other way. But I think the key to that success was making sure that we prepped everyone going into the sessions and set expectations. I'm going to talk about virtual culture at the end, because I think it links into everything that I'm going to talk about. Getting to the talent, I think the biggest education that has happened within Intuit is we don't need people to be on site to be highly productive and for us to be able to serve our customers well. So we've actually started making, pretty big pivots on our real estate decisions, where we were going to have offices, where we were going to increase the size of offices, to really just spend some time on how many people are actually going to want to be back in the office full time, when we get back to a safe place. And we just ran a survey this week asking our employees about their comfort level around returning to the workplace and how they're feeling about all of that. So I think we will see a huge opportunity as talent acquisition to be able to hire in places that we don't today because we don't have an office there. So I think it's going to open up for us, especially in the world of engineering hiring, a huge opportunity to hire in different places. And then I think on the culture bit, this is the bit we're figuring out, right, that we haven't solved yet. How do you get across your company culture when you don't get to meet people and they don't get to be in your office environment? So that is one of the things we're wrangling with right now. As usual, I have talked too much, so I'm gonna wrap it up and look forward to hearing your questions later.
Thank you so much, Jennifer and Jason. Really important point noted. From Jason, we heard about reputation being everything, yet it could be destroyed in minutes. So it's so important during this time of lack of that face-to-face interaction, what we need to do. And Jennifer, it was so easy to go over because what you're talking about is critical to a lot of the folks joining. Already we have questions around how do you motivate and create a virtual culture. So looking forward to hearing more in the Q&As. Let's move next to the second question. And for that, I'm going to invite Alvin and Chris. And the focus question here, as noted on the screen, is how do we build those powerful networks in the global space that opens us up to opportunities for our people, specifically around learning and engagement and creating that ultimate employee experience? How is this done in this new normal? So with that being said, I'm going to start over to Al. Al, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Marsha. And good day, everyone. Again, I'm Alvin Day, and I'd like to shift the focus today a little bit on this question about ultimate experience in a learning environment by suggesting to you that while we are all conscious that this is a massive health crisis and a crisis of global economic upheaval, there is an implication to the experience through which we're going that you cannot afford to miss. It is powerful, it is critical. And that is that this is really, for everyone in an organization with a leadership role, a crisis of leadership. It is a crisis of leadership in a way that we've not experienced for a long time. Now, I'm not just talking about the presidents and prime ministers of the countries, because certainly it is there in terms of how they handle the crisis. But if you permit me to be personal about you, about your leadership of your own thoughts, your own self, your family, your organization, your business. You see, before COVID-19, if you were efficient and if everything were organized properly, then COVID-19 would be gentle on you in terms of its economic impact and business impact. But if you had gaps in your operation and inconsistencies in your business, COVID-19 and the crisis tend to exacerbate and expose that. I think everybody can relate to that because under pressure, the weaknesses of the structure become very evident. And so, for example, you and I can no longer afford to take comfort in the notion that because people come on time to the job and spend 8 hours there or 10 hours, that they're being productive. The truth is the research is repeated in showing that for the average person in an office or at work, the number of productive hours per day is about 2.8. The rest of it, who knows? But productivity is limited to a few hours. And so under the stress, this becomes very, very important. How do we therefore become successful when we don't have control of the people in the same room? The other thought is that if you succeeded in your job for the last 5 years and your work for the last 20 or 30 years, even though you were not necessarily agile and responsive and transformative, that's no longer going to work in the new normal. And so it is critical that we shift ourselves. We have to learn how to attract people, not just expect them to do what we say because they work for us. It really is about leadership, and it really is about you on a very personal note. And so Chris and I are looking at this idea about how to generate the ultimate employee experience. And I suggest to you that the ability to do this is dependent on your answers to these questions. How much are you deliberate and direct in working on yourself, you as a human being, you as a father, you as a mother, you as a manager, you as a project director? Are you reinventing yourself? Are you reinventing your business? Are you thinking about possibilities, leveraging the crisis in terms of change? Are you learning? Are you developing and growing? Do you have new ways of holding your people accountable without micromanaging them so that they're clear about what is expected of them? We certainly do not have time to get into how we do all of this. In fact, on your slide, there is a URL about leading a remote team. Take a look at that if you will. But the charge is for your company to invest heavily in leadership development, because as the head goes, so does the body. We're working with our clients right now to beef that up, to make sure that people are resilient and strong and recognize this not just as a crisis, but an opportunity to get ahead into the new world, because we know it'll never return to be the same as it was before. So in order to build a thriving team, then I leave you with these words that we share with our clients. As you want productivity, as you want growth and development, the first order of business is to work on you first before you work on them. Thank you very much. And now I pass to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Alvin. Well, firstly, how do we build the ultimate employee experience? I can proudly say that I've spent the last 10 years doing that for the world's most international company. I've been with the company just over 20 years and 10 years in learning and development. And I know we've done it, and I'm very proud of that. The company's very proud of that. We have seen ridiculously huge increases in employee opinion survey results. They're world class. You heard earlier about Great Place to Work. We measure ourselves with Great Place to Work, and over the last 3 years, we've gone from 7th to we're now in 4th place, and our ambitions are to be number 1, and we're quite confident that that's something we are going to focus on and get to. So I don't have anything to worry about. Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought until Friday the 13th. It's an ominous day, but Friday the 13th of March this year, during the middle of a training program, we were literally on a 2-week residential training program, and we had to send the delegates home. They were from South America, North America, all around the Caribbean. And because of the flight restrictions, because things were being shut down, we had to end this class and get these people on planes quickly before there were no flights and there were no planes. That was not something we had predicted. That is not something we had a plan B for. But our engagement levels and our program was being driven around this human interaction. And all of a sudden it's halted. From that day to now, we have not run a live class with people in it. We've not been able to. It's illegal to in some of the countries. They're on lockdown. So we've had to really think, and similar to Jennifer's comments, we've had to really think quick. What do we do? Right? What do we do to keep these programs? We have, just to give you an idea of the scope of our program, in 10 years, we've written 154 modules. These are all from the bottom up. They're ours. They're not bought off the shelf. We've translated those modules into 40 languages because we deliver them in 224 countries. That is the world's most international training program, as well as the world's most international company. That's a huge investment from us, but 95% of it is classroom-based, face-to-face training. That's the culture of our company. We're a very human company. Our leaders are all about giving feedback and receiving feedback, both motivational and developmental. We spent 5 years training our leaders on how to coach using an enabling style. We're really invested in this stuff. It's about that human contact. And although we are still operational, we're one of those companies that is considered essential. 70% of our employees are still at an environment like a warehouse or a hub, on planes, in vehicles. Overnight, 30% of our employees were sent home because they could do their job from home. But our network, our infrastructure was not ready for that. And for those of you that dial in and have to log in through VPNs, our VPN was never ready for that many people to be using a VPN overnight. And we had to put strict restrictions on how many people could attend a meeting the first week or two. Now, we moved quick. The VPNs now have been increased, and we can now manage any number of people at any time. But that was something that had to be done really, really quick. The second thing is people really, really want to be together, right? They want to see each other. It's okay going a few days without seeing your colleagues in the office. It's okay trying to do some training or trying to share some commentary or listen to people over the phone. But you start missing their faces and you start missing them. And I think that's something that we're all dealing with in our company, and I'm sure many, many companies, that you really don't realize how much you miss seeing the people. You take it for granted. And we were not geared up for video conferencing. Every one of our boardrooms has a video conference set of equipment in, but the usage on it compared to the investment is minute. I mean, we just, big board meetings occasionally we're using it maybe 10, 15 times a year for a select group of people. Every employee at every desktop, not even close. We're using VoIP and we're using emailing predominantly, those two low bandwidth technologies. And now we're in a place where we really want to use video conferencing. So we are massively gearing up on bandwidth to all of our countries. And some of these countries are difficult to get extra bandwidth to, but it's really, really essential. So we've got two strains of thoughts in our company. There's those, I think, that the wishers are wishing that it will get back to normal real quick. So this is just a period we need to get through. And if that's the mindset that we've got, then we could just hang on. Right? We've got plenty of engagement. It's a key pillar of our infrastructure. Motivated people is the first pillar of our business strategy. We could hang on for a few months and see if it gets back to normal. And I'm not sure that that's really the case, but that's my own personal beliefs. There are others that think it will. Or we can look at it in a different way and say, but we've been pushed into a place that we weren't expecting, and are there true benefits from it? And that's where we're starting to realize that actually that is where you can invest, because you really do need to spend some money to get the best out of these new technologies. It's not just about the infrastructure. Without the infrastructure, you can't use them. With the infrastructure, you can really start to get some good results.
So Chris, I'm going to ask you to just
close it now.
Comments. Yeah, thank you.
So make sure that everybody that you are going to use these tools knows how to use them properly, knows that you can't just deliver a class the same as you used to in a classroom. You have to get really skilled up on using virtual instructor-led training, and make sure that your company can embrace this new future, not be resistant and hope it gets back to the old ways.
Thank you, Chris. Really. Thank you, Chris and Al. So again, just some closing thoughts. Let's start with what Chris just said there. Even though we have engagement, DHL, the international company, at 4, already Chris is thinking through around how do we ensure that the infrastructure supports? How do we ensure that people know how to use it? And of course, I loved Al's deliberate question. How do you reinvent yourself to be better poised to ensure you're productive in this new normal? Some real food for thought, folks. And again, I'm seeing the questions coming in. Can't wait till we get there. So with that being said, let's turn our attention to question 3, sorry. Clearly, I want to get there too fast. And we're going to invite Ken and Ian to share. And our focus here is how do we set ourselves up for success, which is a lovely segue into what Al and Chris just shared. Moving forward, and how and what are the critical changes that needed to restart our business as we consider that next normal? So allow me to ask Ken to kick that off. And Ken, over to you.
Thank you. Well, currently, many companies are sweating about their return plans. They're talking about distancing, layouts, sterilisation. Yeah, these things are all critical, but it's not enough. Future success is more about creating sustainable capabilities, competitor advantage, and revenue streams. 3 keys I'm going to focus on to talk about that are leadership, customer and client service, and innovative thinking. Leadership. Caring is the new unfair advantage. Gallup have been asking engagement questions for over 20 years. And if they boiled it all down, there's one comes to the forefront all the time. And that is, my supervisor at work seems to care about me as a person. So it all is coming back to caring and feelings. Leaders also need to have a resilient mindset. We need to accept the reality of what's going on, brainstorm the solutions, decide the best action, and then act. I also suggest that we have 10-minute meetings first up in the morning, and we ask these questions. Are you okay? And what are you grateful for? What did you achieve yesterday? What is your major goal today? And are there any obstacles that need to be removed for you to achieve that goal today? And as leaders, recognition is also very important. I recommend that we recognise and acknowledge every team member every week. As Mother Teresa said, there is more hunger in the world for love and compassion than for bread. The second point is customer and client service. To win back customers and create new ones, excellent service is critical. What are you doing that your competitor is not prepared to do? I also suggest that you measure referrals, referred business from your existing customers. If you are not getting a minimum of 40% of new business direct from your existing customers, your customers are not engaged. Have team sessions and have the team come up with ideas of how can we wow our customer and turn them into advocates. The third point is innovative thinking. Something like this will happen again. We need to pandemic-proof our businesses. We need to get innovative, create agility, and be able to pivot quickly. In the past few months, it taught us that every business needs 4 to 5 channels and revenue streams. So what are you doing about making sure you've got those? I suggest you develop a set of muscles, fast twitch muscles, to innovate with the trends, to be able to pivot quickly and move and change direction. And we also need slow twitch muscles because there is still a need to have long-term plans and strategic thinking. Use the wisdom of the masses. Get your team thinking, how can we diversify? Let them help you find the 4 or 5 revenue streams that you need. To be successful in the new normal, we've covered leadership, customer service, and innovation. Thank you. Now over to Ian for his thoughts.
Thanks, Ken. So for me, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you very much. So today I want to kind of look at 4 key things: people, process, profit, and technology. So if we're looking at how do we restart our businesses, the first thing I want you to think about is you as a person. As the business leader, as the owner, you have to begin to look at, are you ready? What's your frame of mind, your state of mind? So you need to ensure that you as an individual who's the leader of the business, you are ready and prepared and positively thinking about moving forward. Secondly, you need to think about your clients or your customers. What you have to figure out is what has changed for my clients or my customers, and has the solutions I provide to them, is that still valid? So you want to be thinking about what has changed for them and how do you change what you provide to them. Then you think about your team. Is your team fit for purpose? Are you sure that your team can shift and change? And if not, what needs to change in your team in terms of skills, in terms of behavior, in terms of knowledge? The second thing I want you to think about is the whole concept of your suppliers. Now, if you're in products or services and you provide yourself, then that's one thing. But if you're in products, you need to think, can my suppliers continue to provide me with the services that I have and that I can provide them to my customers? Are they at risk? What's happening with my customers? Then I want to focus on the whole idea of profit. And when I look at profit, my question to you is, are you prepared to climb the ladder towards what's changing within the marketplace? So do a forensic audit of your business from a financial standpoint. What are your cash flows? What do you have in reserve? What do you expect to see coming into your business over the next few months that you can figure out whether you can sustain this? So the financial piece is critical because it's going to going to determine how you move forward. So look at your expenses, look at your revenue streams, look at your cash flow, look at any assets you may have that you are not utilizing effectively now. How can you utilize them differently? So a forensic audit of your financial position is critical. The other thing I want you to think about is your business model. Is your business model fit for purpose? For example, if you look at what you've been providing to customers in the past, if you look at how you've been providing it, if you look at how customers come into your business, the way you generate leads, the way you onboard customers, you've got to think about your business model. The way that you take customers along their life cycle in terms of delivery to them, does that need to change? And the last thing I want you to think about is, how do you leverage technology? How do you ensure that the way you deliver to customers, what has to change? How do you deliver? You want to make sure that can you use technology to improve the experience and the engagement of your customers? So you want to take the time to step back, but also to look forward in terms of how you can leverage technology in terms of delivery, in terms of the customer experience, in terms of efficiency, and in terms of how you ensure that there's accountability within your team so that you can ensure that you're actually getting the kind of productivity and the level of performance you require. So as I close, let me just ask you to think about one thing. The question is, are you delivering to your customers what they need at this time? Do you have a revenue stream that's going to be sustainable? And if not, how can you shift that? And what opportunities do you have to change things for you? Thank you.
Well, that's definitely some food for thought. Thank you very much, Ian and Ken, in sharing with us how we really ready ourselves for this new normal. Again, I'm seeing questions coming in quite a bit. So speakers, get ready. We have quite a bit to respond to. With that being said, we're going to turn to the fourth question and final question. And we're going to invite Al again, along with, just bear with me, along with Gail Jean-Baptiste to answer that question of how do we create engaging employee experiences as organizations revisit their telecommuting practices to support this new norm. Gail, let's kick it off with you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, good day. It's a real pleasure spending a few moments with you today. So I'm going to go straight into it because time is limited. So guys, over the past few months, millions of employees were catapulted into new ways of working, stepping into their new norm quite seamlessly, actually, embracing technology and continuing to deliver great work. But whilst all this was happening, people were connecting on a deeper and more personal level, bringing into focus the importance of family, physical and mental health and well-being, and emotional and financial security. The need for work-life balance, all of a sudden, although it was always there, was now in the forefront of our minds. Around us, we're being served numerous articles and opinions and recommendations about what we did wrong, what we did right, what we could do better at, and what needs to change to prepare organizations for the new normal or the next normal. Looking at all these moving parts, I'm not convinced that there are actually any real groundbreakingly new models out there today to drive employee engagement. The strategies being discussed and debated circle back to a couple of key models that has been in existence for quite some time. And right up there at the very top sits leadership. So what is changing and changing very quickly and continuously evolving is employee expectations. So what does this look like? The conversation is around the need for a couple of key things. One, flexible working arrangements that really support work-life balance, a greater sense of clarity, what is expected and how does the work I do actually contribute to the results of the organization that I work for. Deeper collaboration that enables internal communities to thrive in both the virtual and the physical space. And a culture that truly focuses on understanding and meeting individual employee needs. So who has this great job of creating that culture and the experiences that align organizations to employee expectations and deeper engagement? As cliche as it sounds, leadership is still at the heart of it all. Carrying the label of a leader is simply not going to be enough moving forward. If leaders wish to retain best-in-class talent, they will need to do more than just turn up. Aligning or realigning your organization will require much more than just being there and being at the forefront of driving the organization. Leadership can simply no longer just be good. It's got to be great. So what does that look like? What are the kinds of things that are coming out? And a few of the speakers have already spoke a little bit about it. And for most of you out there, I would imagine one way along the journey, you would have heard of some of those things. So I'm just kind of reinforcing it. The leaders moving forward are going to have to be very intentional about their leadership. They will need to truly show up in a much more deliberate and purposeful manner. The need for empathetic leadership, I think someone mentioned that earlier about understanding, how happy and what's important to your people. So the ability to cultivate a healthy culture that truly embraces work-life balance, and the need to connect on the more human side to the people who work for us, understanding the emotional and physical well-being of the people who we entrust the success of our organizations to. What makes them happy? What do they care about? Someone spoke to resilience a while ago, and I think that's critical moving forward. Being resilient and focused as a leader, the ability to inspire through really tough times, which is what we are going through right now as we navigate into this next normal. Keeping the organization moving forward through all the uncertainties that are happening around us. Recognizing and understanding and planning for the level of change that is coming our way, and it is coming, and I think most of us already know that. What are our plans? How are we going to navigate from the top? And setting those clear directions and holding our people to account. The next one is really being about a coach and a mentor. And again, that is common and expected of a leader. But we're really going to have to step into that space. And if you're not coaching today, get yourself a coach. Get yourself a coach that will assist you in developing those critical skills, because this is very important. They need to be listening and understanding the individual needs of your people and creating a culture that embraces that coaching and mentoring. And finally, know your talent. Know your talent and work to keep that talent. I think Jennifer touched on it a little bit. The hiring market will become, and is already becoming, truly global as organizations shift their working practices to deliver work from anywhere. Likewise, employees who are not engaged will look to move to leaders who can engage them. Ensure that your chief people officer or your head of HR has the experience and the skill to help you shape and influence your business strategy and your culture, and understands the critical role that talent plays in the success of your business. Attitudes, mindsets, and expectations are changing as the world of work evolves. Research suggests that 1 in 5 jobs will be replaced by AI or automation. And according to the World Economic Forum, AI and automation will create 58 million new jobs by 2022. How are we getting our people ready for that? How are we getting our organizations ready for that? So to close, I'm going to say, I believe the world is waiting to see what leaders are going to do to move organizations forward, to increase engagement, and to improve employee expectations. We know the employee expectations are changing, and we need to really begin to focus on what supporting that will look like. I just touched in on a few key pieces. I think that these models will be developed over time in the next few months and years ahead of us. And I think those will shape the stories and the models which we will use in the future in seminars such as this. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Thanks, Gail. So Al, over to you for our wrap-up response to question 4.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcia. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump to the heart of the matter. Gail talked about leadership being at the top of the list of things we should consider. It was Ken Wright who talked about the need for us to care and to do all of those wonderful things with our people. But the truth of the matter is, if you should acknowledge that leadership is critical and it has to start at the top, and you should go to the average 45-year-old senior executive and tell him that he needs to show empathy and compassion and care to employees, knowing that he has gotten 2 degrees in school and all of them are practical, operational, business-related things, it will not make sense to him or her, as the case may be, because there is no experience that that person may have in terms of making a connection between that sort of soft skill thing and getting what they want, because it's not taught in schools, because the typical HR program does not do that, because the average executive does not necessarily know how to do that. This is a cultural shift. Everybody's talking about engagement, but how do you get senior executives truly to feel compassion for the people when they're being driven by the numbers on the stock market and the analysts' prediction of the company? And so I want to talk about this in the context of how you might put it in the model. What you want at the end of the year and the end of the quarter for your organization is hard stuff. You want performance, you want productivity, you want profitability, shareholder value, growth. Wonderful. What you have to do is you have to put some hard stuff at the start of this formula and say, we need to have systems and structures in place. We need to have the technology right. We need to have the training and goals and objectives. Hard stuff that we want to leverage to get hard stuff at the end. But I'm here to tell you that it'll be impossible to get sustainable results in your business and truly in your life unless you fill in that middle box with the soft stuff, because the hard stuff is effect and the soft stuff is cause. And so what needs to happen is our leaders throughout, from the senior executive to the supervisor, need to understand what it means to care. It doesn't mean to get into people's private stuff at their homes. No, it needs to show that you have respect for them. Leaders need to have the ability to show dignity and impart dignity to their people. We are teaching our clients at a very senior level and throughout the leadership structure how to do caring, because they don't know how. I had a woman who's a senior executive say to me throughout our 1-year leadership coaching program, Alvin, but wait a minute. You're asking me to recognize and award and reward people for doing the job that I'm already paying them to do. And she said that 3 different times throughout the year's coaching experience. And I went, oh my gosh, she doesn't get it. Encouragement sweetens labor. And so what we're doing right now is we're teaching them the very basic tactical language of how to show appreciation, how to be servant leader and not think themselves to be at the top of the hierarchy where people work for them, but to be the ones taking the hits and caring for the people and protecting the people and the customers. The question is, why would you do that? Is it because you're a nice person? No, because the research shows that this is good for business. I'll give you one specific example here, maybe a couple quickly. MIT and Oxford University collaborated on a study that they just reported just in February 2020. And the study shows that when the staff is happy, they produce 18 to 24% greater productivity. 18 to 24%. Gallup research showed a few years ago, or they reported a research project that shows that when a staff is highly engaged, it contributes 6% to the bottom line profits. Subsequently, in order for us to shift our organization from being a normal functional organization to one of high energy and high engagement, it is necessary for us to show senior management the connection between being empathetic and caring and delivering the bottom line. When people are happy about themselves on the jobs, they simply work better. They don't even think about the work. They like you, they like the work, they like themselves. And when they are happy, you get your objectives done. You get your targets hit. It is as simple as that. And yes, so take a look at that website. Work on yourself. Hire people to come in and work on leadership and teach people not just the high-level leadership stuff, but literally the practical, ordinary things like the words. What words do you say? How do you deal with conflict situations? How do you reprimand someone and still preserve that person's dignity? How do you stimulate energy and passion in your organization? Because if you don't have that middle box filled out, you can micromanage, you can push, you can coerce, but the results you get this year will not be sustainable. In order for you to be sustainable, all of us need to be skilled at the simple graces of kindness and gentleness and make people feel like they're part of the system. When you do that, you really have an organization at work. Thank you so much.
Well, that's a very fitting close to the focus questions. Thank you so much, panelists. And, 45 minutes to an hour is just not enough time. But remember, this is just a teaser. It's about what's coming next in September. And many of our panelists here would be part of that, I won't even say conference, but that movement that we're encouraging you to join. So with that being said, we're going to open up for some Q&As. But a quick plug, remember 24-hour flash sale. Now is your time to join the movement. Let's kick off the questions. So we have a question here from Colleen, and let me just share that in the interest of time, we won't be able to answer all of the questions, but we will review all of them and issue responses themed by questions on the website. So please ensure that you log on to the website when you're registering. Right after registering, ensure that you look at those questions for the full responses. But I'm going to take a few. And the first one is from Colleen, and she's asking, in the midst of a virtual culture, what performance measures did you put in place to ensure productivity? And while I'm going to open it up to all of the speakers, I'm going to kick it off with Jennifer, because Jennifer, you spoke about that virtual culture. So Jennifer, if you could open that question, please, from a response.
So I think there's been a great revelation in general with leaders realizing that productivity is much better now in many cases than it was for in the office. I think the way that we do it at Intuit is we use a tool called BetterWorks, which tracks every single employee's goals. So the employee and the manager at the beginning of each fiscal year, which for us begins in August, so our new year starts soon, sits down, agrees the goals and the key measures, like month by month, quarter by quarter, of how those goals are going to be delivered. So when that is, it sounds easy, right? But if that is done well and those goals align to what you need for your business, doesn't matter where your employee is, they're going to be able to achieve whatever results you need them to. I think the only thing I've noticed around goal achievement and like being in this virtual world is you just have to be more and more explicit, or there's a word that's being constantly used today, deliberate, around making sure that everyone's 100% clear on that goal, how that goal ladders up to the broader business and how that's going to help drive us forward. But other than that, I feel like have another key thing, a practical thing that I think will help is I have weekly one-to-ones with my team. I have monthly check-ins, we call them, where we spend an hour just talking about personal development. Unless there is literally a life or death reason, I will not move those meetings. Those meetings will always happen. They never get deprioritized. I think that's even more important in a world that we're in now.
Thank you, Jennifer. Spot on. And segueing to that, we have a question here that asks, how do we engage staff with almost little to no budget and also very much reduced benefits? How do you budget for rewards and recognition? And I listened keenly to what Al shared, as well as a lot of the other panelists. While it's about leadership, it's also, as Ken mentioned, about being innovative. So I'm going to start off with Ken and ask Al to also weigh in. So the question is, how do you engage staff with little or no benefits and rewards? How do we be innovative? And that's from Chanel Durant.
Yeah, well, I'll take the first part of that with how do you reward them? But to engage people, you really do not need to spend a lot of money. You need to, if you find things to recognize and acknowledge people about, like the 1 Minute Manager said, find something that someone's doing right and tell them about it. And it really doesn't cost anything, but it's a very powerful thing when you show that you care about people and give them that acknowledgement and recognition. And I'll pass that over to someone else.
Yes.
Okay. Al?
Yes, thank you. How do you engage staff? I agree with Ken, it's not about money. Money is a short-lived motivator. The most powerful way we have found to engage staff is to disrupt their thinking, to disturb their thinking, to get them out of the sort of comfort zone of I have a job and I get paid for it. I have seen staff members wake up and come alive by being faced with the notion that they are responsible for their lives. It's not their boss's job. They get up every day, they come, they have a responsibility to their family and to their own legacy, to themselves, to be productive, to know that life is going to be challenging and not cry about it, and that there's a wonderful reward that is available when you're innovative and you're creative and you overcome difficulties. The mistake that we make is sometimes we think it's the leader's responsibility, sometimes we think it's the staff responsibility, and we blame all kinds of entities. The truth is, it's all of the components. And when we present constructive disruption to staff members to help them to contend with the power before them, and that they have to get up every day and go to work really hard and strive through the issues, then they become more aware of the possibilities of achieving satisfaction and success. And I've seen breakthroughs happen there. It is not about coddling them. It's about having them contend with the unexploited potential that they have. Even as we continue to work with the leaders at the top, it's two-sided, not one-sided.
Absolutely. I love what you've mentioned about that duality of leadership, but also the role of the employee. Thank you, gentlemen. Folks, I know it's at the top of the hour, so with the okay from our OECS colleagues, I'm going to take 2 more questions to our panelists, but I would like to invite all 500 plus of you who are logged on and some others just joined to ask for that leeway to extend that session. So if I may we continue? I'm seeing heads shaking, so thank you very much. So we'll go on, we'll push through with 2 more questions. And I'm going to ask Ian and Jason to respond to this one. And this person is saying, as a new CEO joining a company and having to telework from the start, how do I proceed with engaging staff? And I mean, this is really a tough question. You know, we're talking about leadership. So I've not had an opportunity to engage and meet and greet, and I'm the CEO, I'm the leader. Ian, let's start with you and then hand over to Jason.
Yeah, Marsha, people are interested in what people are interested in, meaning that we cannot engage people if we don't understand people. So as a new CEO, you want to take some time to understand your people. You want to understand their motivators, their drivers. So I would suggest a one-to-one. It's going to take some time, but a one-to-one session with every single member of your team. Mm-hmm. And then some group sessions with the wider groups, So you want to understand, you know, what are the issues? So I love a simple model that says, I want to start, I want to stop, I want to keep. So a simple question is, what it is do you think that I, as the new CEO, should start doing? What are the things that you think that I, as a CEO, should stop doing within the organization? And what are the things you think we're doing well, should continue doing? So for me, if you start that by having individual conversation on that level, and then asking people what it is that they would want in terms of their ability to function effectively within the organization, I think you'll be able to get some engagement from folks.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian. Jason, thoughts? Jason? All right. I'm going to move to the next question then. One of the participants has asked specifically about how do we monitor what's going on when we work at home? How do we know that folks are not just, you know, spending time on Netflix? Don't let anyone know. That's what I do. But it's my secret with all 500 of you. How do we ensure that we are monitoring and ensuring that not just the work is being done, but how do we appraise staff in this virtual context, coupled with the well-being? Because for some of us, it seems as if the days have just been extended. I'm going to ask Gail to speak to that and also invite Chris from an HR director perspective. How do you manage this new norm? Gail, starting with you.
Hi, I'm smiling because at the OECS Commission, what we did was actually send out some daily tips around telecommuting and just keeping folks in check in terms of now you are working from home. There needs to be some serious consideration around how you frame your day, how you structure your day. And so that's the first part of it. In terms of
ensuring that people are doing what they're supposed to do. I think that's about the relationship that the line has with the employee or the group or the team or whatever it is. I think there has to be that level of trust in terms of what I need, and that clarity in terms of what I need from you and when I need it by. So that kind of mutual agreement in terms of how things are going to work, always trying to move forward. There is no point saying at the end of every Monday, we're going to have a list of tasks. I think, yes, the tasks work, but I think people will be a lot more engaged if they are more involved in how do they add to the bigger picture? How do they add to the bottom line? So in answer to that question very briefly, I think it is about the relationships you build with your people, and how you set about, in a very structured way, how things are going to get delivered. The what, the who, the when, and the why, all in happening at the same time. And I think that's very possible. In addition, you have some amazing tools where you can actually recreate communities. You can have chats by the water cooler. You can do anything you want with technology. But at the end of the day, it's about ensuring you put some arrangements in place that works for both you and the employee, and always keeping communication flowing constantly. Daily stand-ups. I think someone mentioned that. That really works. Yes.
Thank you. And Gail, what I'm going to do before I segue to Chris is, you spoke about their online tools. I'd like to ask that you can share those again on the website. So once folks have registered for September, they can also avail themselves of some of the ideas you may have employed at the Commission around those tools to help monitor and appraise and keep things on point. Chris, sure. What are your thoughts? What's happening at DHL in terms of the most international company? How are you managing and monitoring stuff?
There's two pieces to this, and this is about the role of the employee. Some of our roles are very transactional, and the measurement of their productivity is easy, and this is where we've seen some of these returns that we've sent them home without thinking about it too much, and all of a sudden we're seeing more of their transactions being done in the course of a normal working day. Now, we don't really care when that transaction is completed as long as the volume's completed, so we're very happy to see these numbers go up. And that's a group of people that we don't need to think about. There's other groups of people where their transactions are less defined. I think these are the Netflix people that you refer to. That are they watching Netflix? This is not so much about their needs to be measured as in the mindset of the leader to say, look, what were they doing in the office, right? You didn't visit and stand over them every minute of every day. When we were preparing for this, me and Alvin were talking, and he said, look, there's studies out there that say people are less than sort of 3.5 hours productive in the office. So what are you expecting from them out of the office? Well, I think you should be expecting exactly the same output as a leader, and don't worry about the fact that they're not visible to you. And that's a mindset change for our leaders. And we definitely have that problem right now. We've got leaders questioning, we've got to bring them back. We've got to bring them back. I don't think they're working. But what evidence do you have? What facts do you have? So that's a transition that we are just going through right now. And I think it's a place of us as leaders getting comfortable with the fact that people want to work, and the convenience of working in a more varied environment at home is actually something that's going to motivate them. Being able to do the kids' lunches, prepare the dinner, and do a couple of hours after dinner and a couple of hours after lunch, and pick up the school kids, all those things which we haven't had before, they're now on offer. And I think it's a real positive.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that, Chris. And I'm hearing there that balance, and listening to you at all, it really is that relationship between leader and employee, because what's different if you always inspired and led your team and held people accountable? We can hope that type of behavior would have transitioned. Of course, there are distractions, but how do we manage that? And that is that joint relationship between leader and employee. Absolutely. So folks, in closing, there's some key themes that have come up. We've learned about the virtual culture. We've learned about reinventing yourself, the importance of that work-life balance, the importance of having the infrastructure to allow your employees to actually telework. And one critical point is the role of you as leader. Leader in terms of your leadership in an organizational strata, if you're a leader of people, but also self-leadership. What is your role and accountability as an employee? So I encourage you to tune in to the website where you'll get all of these questions answered. I know there were tons of questions. Time regrettably didn't permit, but we will be responding. So I encourage you to tune into the website to get that information. It's been a pleasure moderating this session on behalf of our fellow panelists. Thank you so much for your time, your insights, and your vast knowledge. Just based on the feedback, I can see that folks well enjoyed the session, and tune in more as we ready ourselves for SDM in September. Allow me to pass on now to Lisa, who's going to close. Thank you.
This session has been enlightening. It has been disruptive. I've been listening as a leader, I have a lot of soul searching to do. And it has been quite impactful and profound hearing the various perspectives from around the world, and the fact that we had all 600 of you engaged right throughout the session. We know that we did something right. And at this point, I am going to invite you to take advantage of the flash sale, because this is a teaser to what will happen in September as it relates to the human development, human capital learning track of the Sustainable Development Movement. And as established for those of you who weren't here at the start, SDM is really a disruptive space that is going to cause a mind shift. It is going to catapult persons into a space of innovation through recalibrated business models, business unusual thinking. It's almost prophetic, because when this event was birthed about 6 months ago, September last year, we thought about SDM within the realm of creating a space where persons can bring together disruptive thought to solve major solutions and challenges. And COVID has basically forced the entire world in that space. So right now, SDM 2020, it's timely, it's relevant, it's well poised, and we're looking forward to see you. The flash sale ends on Friday night at 10 p.m. The virtual tickets are on sale now at a 30% discount. The regular ticket that gives you access to an exhilarating virtual experience is for $147 US. You can get it now for $100 US by just visiting OECSSDM.com. There's a virtual VIP ticket that allows you access to the virtual platform, plus the recording of all the sessions that will happen in September. The original price for that is $250 US, and it's going for $200 now. This is tremendous value. I encourage you to visit the website, OECSSDM.com. Click on the registration link. It will take you directly to the payment website where the tickets are on. They were uploaded this morning by SpurOpen.com. And I'm also taking this opportunity to recognize the lead sponsor for SDM 2020, the most innovative bank in the world, with a cadre of leadership team that is incomparable and next to none. The Republic Bank, we thank them so very much. They're also the title sponsors for the business model competition that will be hosted by Damon John in September. Exciting times ahead. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in. Please listen out for us. Remember, we'll be emailing you. We'll be obliterating your mailboxes. The next webinar is scheduled for June 17th, and the headliner is Mia Motley. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks to our presenters and our team at the OECS Commission for making this possible today. Thank you.